understand the rules here. You are not listening to me, and I will not tolerate this behavior.
It was supposed to be a normal afternoon at Riverside Elementary. Two identical black twins, Marcus and Malcolm Hayes, were laughing on the playground, their matching NASA t-shirts catching the spring sunlight. Then a white woman in a red blazer appeared, pointing, yelling, demanding they leave. Within minutes, sirens echoed through the schoolyard. Parents froze. Teachers rushed over. And those two little boys, who'd done absolutely nothing wrong, stood there confused and terrified as police cars pulled up. But what that woman didn't know, what she couldn't have possibly known, was that the mother of those boys had just been featured on the evening news. And by sunrise, the entire nation would know her name, her face, and exactly what had been done to her children. What happens when a racist assumption meets a mother who refuses to stay silent?
Dr. Amara Hayes wasn't supposed to be on the news that night. She was a microbiologist, not a celebrity. A researcher at the National Institute of Health, specializing in infectious disease prevention. Her work had saved lives across 3 continents, but she preferred lab coats to spotlights, data over drama. Amara was the kind of woman who arrived early, stayed late, and never sought recognition. Her colleagues respected her. Her peers cited her research. But outside her field, she was virtually unknown. That was about to change. It was a Tuesday evening when the local NBC affiliate called. They were doing a feature on women in STEM, particularly women of color breaking barriers in federal research. Amara almost declined. She had twins to pick up from after-school care, dinner to make, homework to supervise. But her colleague convinced her, let young girls see someone who looks like them doing what you do. So she agreed. A 15-minute segment. That was it. Meanwhile, 7-year-old Marcus and Malcolm Hayes had no idea their mom would be on TV. They were busy being kids, building Lego rockets, arguing over who got the last juice box, and planning their playground strategy for the next day. Both boys were obsessed with space. NASA was their religion. They wore those matching t-shirts like uniforms, complete with little white cardigans their grandmother had knitted. They were inseparable, mirror images of each other. Same round faces, same gap-toothed smiles, same bright eyes that lit up whenever someone mentioned astronauts or black holes or Mars rovers. Teachers often mixed them up. Even their father sometimes called them by the wrong name. But Amara never did. She knew Malcolm hummed when he concentrated. She knew Marcus always tied his left shoe tighter than his right. She knew they were her entire world. The interview aired at 6 p.m. Amara looked poised on screen, speaking passionately about representation, perseverance, and the importance of curiosity. The segment was well received. Dozens of shares on social media, encouraging comments, even a few messages from young students inspired by her story. By 6:30 p.m., she'd already moved on. She had to. There were spelling words to quiz and a science project about the solar system that needed poster board. The next afternoon, Amara dropped the boys off at school like always. She reminded them to stay together, to listen to their teachers, to have fun. She watched them race toward the playground, their matching backpacks bouncing, their laughter trailing behind them. She had no idea what was coming. At 3:15 p.m., the twins were shooting hoops near the edge of the playground. It was a routine they loved. Marcus would pass, Malcolm would shoot, then they'd switch. Other kids played nearby. The afternoon sun was warm. Everything felt normal. Then a woman appeared at the fence. White, mid-30s, red blazer, white shorts, sunglasses pushed up on her head. She stood there watching the boys with an expression that wasn't curiosity. It was suspicion. One of the teachers noticed her first. "Can I help you?" She pointed. "Those two boys. Do they even go here? The teacher blinked, confused. Excuse me? I live across the street. I've never seen them before. They shouldn't be here. They're students. They're in Miss Parker's second grade class. But the woman wasn't listening. She was already pulling out her phone. And that's when everything changed.
Marcus saw her first. He nudged Malcolm. "Who's that lady?" Malcolm glanced over, shrugged. "I don't know." They kept playing. The basketball bounced off the rim. Marcus grabbed the rebound and passed it back. Neither boy thought much about the woman at the fence. Adults were always around. Parents picking up kids, teachers on duty, delivery people. It was normal. But this wasn't normal. The woman's voice cut through the playground noise. "Excuse me, excuse me." She was waving her phone now, stepping through the gate, walking directly toward the twins. Her face was flushed. Her movements were sharp, aggressive. A teacher intercepted her. "Ma'am, you can't just walk onto school property." "I'm calling the police," the woman snapped. "Those boys don't belong here." "They absolutely belong here," the teacher insisted, her tone firm but professional. "They're students. I know them personally. I've lived here for 8 years. I know every kid in this neighborhood. I've never seen them." "That doesn't mean they're trespassing." The word hung in the air like a slap. By now, other children had stopped playing. Parents waiting at the fence turned to watch. Marcus and Malcolm stood frozen, the basketball forgotten at their feet. "We didn't do anything," Marcus whispered. "I know," Malcolm whispered back. But it didn't matter. Within minutes, a police cruiser pulled up to the curb, then another. 2 officers stepped out, their radios crackling, their expressions unreadable. The woman rushed toward them, gesturing wildly. "Thank God you're here. Those 2 boys, they don't go to this school. I've never seen them before. They just showed up and—" "Slow down, ma'am," one officer said. "What exactly is the problem?" "They are the problem," she hissed, pointing at Marcus and Malcolm. The boys stood there, 7 years old, holding hands, wearing matching NASA shirts and cardigans their grandmother made. They looked terrified. One of the officers approached the teacher. "Do these kids attend this school?" "Yes," she said firmly. "They're in 2nd grade, Marcus Hayes, Malcolm Hayes. They've been enrolled here since kindergarten." "Can you verify that?" "Of course." The teacher pulled out her phone, pulling up the school roster. "Here, Marcus Hayes, Malcolm Hayes, both in Miss Parker's class." The officer nodded, turning back to the woman. "Ma'am, it looks like these kids are students here." "That's impossible," she insisted. "I would have seen them." "Have you checked the school roster?" "I don't need to check anything. I know this neighborhood." The second officer knelt down in front of the twins. His voice was gentler, but his presence was still overwhelming. "Hey, guys, what are your names?" "Marcus," one whispered. "Malcolm," the other echoed. "Do you go to school here?" They nodded in unison. "Where's your mom?" "At work," Marcus said quietly. "She picks us up at 4. By now a small crowd had gathered. Parents, teachers, students, everyone watching, everyone whispering. The woman wasn't backing down. "I'm telling you, something's not right. They don't look like they belong here." That last sentence landed like a bomb. One of the parents gasped, a teacher's jaw dropped, even one of the officers flinched. "Ma'am," the first officer said slowly, "what exactly do you mean by that?" The woman realized her mistake too late. I've never seen them before, and they're black," a mother at the fence said loudly. "That's what you mean, isn't it?" The woman's face went red. "You absolutely did." Now phones were coming out, parents recording, someone live streaming on Facebook. The woman looked around, realizing she was surrounded by witnesses, all of them watching her implode in real time. The officer stood. "Ma'am, these children are enrolled students. There's no crime here. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. But now." She opened her mouth to argue, thought better of it, and stormed off muttering under her breath. But the damage was done. Marcus and Malcolm stood in the middle of that playground, surrounded by staring faces, flashing phones, and the lingering wail of police sirens. They didn't understand what had just happened. They didn't know why that woman hated them. They only knew that something was wrong, something that had nothing to do with basketball or NASA shirts or anything they'd actually done. They just knew they wanted their mom, and she was already on her way.
Amara's phone rang during a meeting. She almost didn't answer, but the caller ID said Riverside Elementary, and her stomach dropped. "Miss Hayes?" The voice on the other end was the school principal. "There's been an incident. Your sons are fine, but what happened?" Amara was already grabbing her keys. "A woman called the police on Marcus and Malcolm, accused them of trespassing. The officers confirmed it was a false report, but—" Amara didn't hear the rest. She was already running. She made it to the school in 8 minutes. When she pulled into the parking lot, she saw the police cars still there, lights off, but parked at the curb like a warning. Parents clustered near the fence, phones out, talking in low, urgent voices. And then she saw them, her boys, sitting on a bench near the office, still holding hands, their faces small and scared and confused. A teacher sat with them, trying to offer comfort, but Amara could see it in their eyes. They'd been marked, singled out, made to feel like criminals at 7 years old. Amara's vision blurred with rage. She walked straight to the principal. "Where is she?" "She left. The police asked her to. Where is she?" The principal hesitated. "Dr. Hayes, I understand you're upset, but my children were terrorized," Amara said, her voice shaking. "A woman called the police on 2 7-year-olds because they're black, and you're telling me she just left?" One of the officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, we documented everything. If you want to file a report—" "A report? What's that going to do? Give her a slap on the wrist? A warning? Meanwhile, my sons just learned that their skin makes them suspicious, that someone can look at them and decide they're a threat?" She turned to Marcus and Malcolm, kneeling in front of them. "Are you okay?" They nodded, but their eyes said otherwise. "Did she hurt you?" "She yelled at us," Malcolm whispered. "She said we didn't belong," Marcus added. Amara pulled them close, feeling their small bodies tremble. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She wanted to find that woman and make her understand the weight of what she'd done. But more than anything, she wanted her sons to know they were safe. "You did nothing wrong," she whispered fiercely. "Do you hear me? Nothing." They nodded again, but she could see the doubt creeping in. The seed of shame that woman had planted. And that's when Amara made a decision. She pulled out her phone and opened the video one of the parents had sent her. The confrontation, the woman's words, the police arrival, all of it captured in brutal clarity. She uploaded it to Twitter, then Facebook, then Instagram. And she wrote, "This is what happened to my 7-year-old sons today. Watch, share, and ask yourself how many other children are being taught that they don't belong." Within an hour, it had 10,000 views. By nightfall, it had 1 million. And by morning, the world would know exactly who Dr. Amara Hayes was.
The video went viral, not just locally, nationally. News outlets picked it up. Civil rights organizations amplified it. Celebrities shared it. By the next morning, Dr. Amara Hayes wasn't just a microbiologist who'd been on the local news. She was a mother who'd refused to let racism hide in the shadows. The woman in the red blazer was identified within hours. Her name, her employer, her social media accounts, all of it surfaced by an internet that doesn't forget. She issued a public apology, claiming she'd acted out of concern for the school's safety. But the damage was done. Her employer placed her on leave. Her neighbors condemned her. And Marcus and Malcolm's story became a flashpoint in the ongoing conversation about racial profiling, implicit bias, and the innocence we refuse to grant black children. Amara appeared on CNN, MSNBC, and NPR. She didn't sugarcoat anything. "My sons are 7, she said in one interview, her voice steady but laced with exhaustion. "They like astronauts and basketball and building things. They're children. But because they're black, a stranger looked at them and saw a threat. That's not just ignorance, that's racism. And it's everywhere." The school district launched an investigation. They implemented new policies around campus security and bias training. The local police department issued a statement condemning racial profiling and promising reforms. But for Marcus and Malcolm, the damage was harder to measure. They didn't want to go back to school for a week. They asked questions Amara didn't know how to answer. Why did that lady hate us? Did we do something bad? Are we safe? She held them. She reassured them. She told them the truth, that some people carry hate in their hearts, and that hate has nothing to do with who they are. She told them they were brilliant, beautiful, and worthy of every space they entered. But she also knew that conversation would have to happen again and again, because this wouldn't be the last time the world questioned their right to exist freely. A month later, Amara was invited to speak at a congressional hearing on racial bias in schools. She brought Marcus and Malcolm with her. They sat in the audience, wearing their NASA shirts, watching their mother testify. "We talk about protecting children," Amara said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "But we don't protect all children equally. My sons were guilty of nothing but existing while black. And until we confront that, until we name it and dismantle it, we're failing an entire generation." The hearing was broadcast live. Millions watched. And somewhere, in classrooms and living rooms and coffee shops across the country, people started asking harder questions about who we see as innocent, about who we see as threatening, about the assumptions we make and the harm they cause. Marcus and Malcolm didn't become activists. They went back to being kids. But they also grew up a little faster than they should have. They understood now, in ways they hadn't before, that the world didn't always see them the way their mother did. But Amara made sure they also understood this. Their blackness was not a burden. It was power. It was history. It was brilliance. And no one, no stranger, no system, no assumption could take that from them. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Share it. Talk about it. Ask the uncomfortable questions, because change doesn't happen in silence. It happens when we refuse to look away. Drop your thoughts below. How do we protect our children from a world that sees them as threats before it sees them as human? Let's keep this conversation alive.